Hi, I'm Gary. Bibliometrics is great software to analyze literature records. So you might be doing a literature review, maybe you just want to find more out about a certain research or academic field. Bibliometrics is great for hundreds or thousands of records, but it's not altogether simple to use if you haven't used it before. And that's what I'll go through in this tutorial. So what we'll go through is I'll show you how we extract records from a database such as Web of Science, Scopus, Dimensions, PubMed, etc. Then how we install bibliometric software, how we load the software, and then how we use it to analyze our data, our literature records. I'm in Web of Science at the moment. And as I've just mentioned, you could always use something like Scopus, PubMed, etc. It's definitely best to use a single database for your search. It's obviously tempting to look at, for example, multiple databases such as Scopus and Web of Science, but there are issues in the way the databases export records for use in Bibliometrics. So I've performed a search here, as you can see, for marketing mix and Australia. Yours will be different, but that's absolutely fine. 938 records. The important thing here is that to use this data in Bibliometrics, we need to export as BibTeX file type. So the first thing we do, perform our search, and then we export these records. So I'm going to click Export BibTeX. Absolutely crucially is you need to click on the record content and select full record and cited references. But what you'll notice is that in Web of Science, for example, we can only export 500 records at a time. So let's export the first 500 records. So let me go 1 to 500, export, and this will take a few seconds. So once we've exported the first 500 records, what we're going to do is export the remaining records. And then I'm going to show you how we can combine the records into a single file to use in Bibliometric software. So I've exported my first 500, then I'm going to click Export and do the same again, BibTeX, but this time I'm going to export, and let me just change the record content to full record and cited references. I'm going to change my records this time from 501 to 938 because we've already exported the first 500. So export. Right, that'll take a few seconds. Once that is exported, what you'll do is you'll have two different files, or you'll have as many exports as you had to do. So the next thing we need to do is combine these files into a single file, because we can typically only load a single file, or easily only load a single file into Bibliometrics. To combine these two files is actually simple. What we're going to do is I'm going to create a new bib file. So I'm just alternate clicking on my screen. I am using Windows, and I'm just going to, in this case, I'm going to create a new, let me create a text document, and I'll rename it. And I can call this anything I want. Let me call this WOS for now, Web of Science, for example. And I'll change the extension to bib. So we have a bib file. So we now have, and I'm going to say yes, we now have three bib files. By the way, you might need to watch this again because there are quite a few steps I'm going through. But keep watching and then come back and maybe watch it again. It'll make sense. And also please subscribe to my channel and like this video and share it if you find it useful. So I need to combine these two into a third file. So what I'm going to do is just select all these files, and I'll just open this in Notepad++ for now. You might use a different Notepad editor, and that's absolutely fine. Let me just move this so you can see where I am. So I have an empty was.bib file, and I've got my two other files. And what I'll do is I'll just select all, copy the information. So I'm just copying and pasting the existing files I exported from Web of Science. Then I'll go to the second file, select all, copy, just make sure that I add it to the end of the file and paste it in. So now my was.bib file contains the contents of both my previously exported files from Web of Science, and I'll just save those. Right, I'll just close that. So my was.bib file now contains the contents of the saved recs and saved recs1.bib files. We're now ready to install and use Bibliometrics to analyze the literature, the records that we exported from Web of Science or wherever you exported it, whichever database. There really are two steps here. For the first time we use Bibliometrics, we need to install it. From then onwards, each time we want to use Bibliometrics, we just load it up. So I'll demonstrate the two different steps. So to install Bibliometrics, the best is to come to bibliometrics.org and then click on Download. Then, what I would do, using I guess you could call it the simple way, the visual way of using Bibliometrics, because there are two ways we can use it. We can use it from a command line, R, or we can use the visual, which we call Shiny. I'll show you the Shiny version. The first thing we do is we install RStudio. So what I've done, under Bibliometrics download is I clicked on rstudio.com and we're taken here. Then if we click download RStudio and then scroll down and then keep scrolling down, we can download the free version. Now it's up to you whether you use the desktop pro version or just the desktop version. But I'm going to demonstrate using the free version. So I'm going to click download. And remembering that this is a once-off, we need to do this on your computer. So there are two steps. We need to install R and we need to install RStudio. So let me just go to download and install R. So that's the first step. So what I've done is I've clicked on download and install R, and you can choose your operating system here. In my case, I'm using Windows, so I would just download the version for Windows, and then I just run the executable file that's downloaded, accept the defaults. Nice and easy. Then, once you've installed R, come and download RStudio Desktop for Windows. So all you're going to do now is you will click download RStudio, run the executable file, obviously depending on what operating system you're using, and accept the defaults. Once you've downloaded install R and install RStudio, and I'm just going to reiterate again, you don't need to take this step again. So in future, when we want to run or use RStudio, what you'll do is you'll just load up RStudio. So in this case, I'm just going to search for it on my computer, click open, just wait a few seconds and RStudio will open. Once we've opened RStudio, because this is the very first time I'm running, for example, this is the first time that I'm running Bibliometrics and Shiny, I need to install the two apps. Right. I'm going to, in the comments of this video, or sorry, in the description of this video, I will add the different scripts you need to run in RStudio. But first of all, we need to install the Shiny package and the Bibliometrics package, and again this is a once-off. So I'm just copying those instructions, I'm coming back to RStudio and I'm just going to paste them in and click enter on my keyboard, and in the background the different packages or the libraries that we need to run Bibliometrics are going to install. It'll just take a few seconds. Once Shiny's installed, which it is now, you can notice that RStudio is installing Bibliometrics. That'll install once off, that's all good. Coming back to the little scripts that I will put again in the description section, every time I want to use or run Bibliometrics, I need to run two different commands, library Bibliometrics and BiblioShiny. So these two instructions I need to run in RStudio every time I use Bibliometrics. I don't need to install RStudio again or Bibliometrics again. I'm just going to copy those two commands, as it were, come back to RStudio, and now I want to load up. Now the excitement starts. I want to load up Bibliometrics. So I'm just going to paste in those two lines, click enter, and RStudio is going to load up Bibliometrics and Shiny in the background. And then what you're going to notice is that my internet browser will open up BiblioShiny for me, or sorry, Bibliometrics for me as what we call a Shiny app. In other words, the visual representation. It's busy loading up. It won't take too long. It's a big application with That's very powerful, so it does take a few seconds. So once we've loaded up Bibliometrics, we get this. We exported our file, right? We now want to import that single file, that bib file that we exported from Web of Science or Scopus or PubMed into Bibliometrics for analysis. So we need to load the data. So I'm clicking to the left-hand side of the screen. I'm clicking on the data. I'm clicking on data. And you can either add an API key, or we can load data and we can load that file that we downloaded and created. So in this case, please choose what to do. I'm going to click the down arrow, and we're going to import the raw file. And then it says which database. Yes, I exported, or the file is from Web of Science, but it could be from Scopus, Dimensions, and so on. So Web of Science, and all I do now is I browse for that file. I've clicked browse, and you'll remember we called it wos.bib. I'm going to click open. Once it's uploaded, I'm going to click start. So we're loading that data now into Bibliometrics, and you need to do this every time you run Bibliometrics to analyze your data. You need to load up the file. This will take a few seconds, and particularly if you have a large number of records, several thousand or tens of thousands, and if you have a slow computer like mine, it might take a minute or two to complete, but it's usually not too. So there we go. The first thing that happens is we're shown a screen, and it looks through the various data that you may analyze in Bibliometrics. So science categories are completely missing. We don't have any science categories. We're missing 78 keywords in this case. Bibliometrics is saying that's sufficient with an 8% of keywords missing, but that's really up to you. Okay. So once we've got this, we can save it, or we can just close it. That's absolutely fine. I'll go through kind of what we're looking at here. So we're seeing our corpus here, and you can search for various records within your corpus. We can also click on filters, and we can change the corpus that we've loaded up, because we loaded up the full corpus, all the records we exported from Web of Science. But in this case, for example, if I only wanted records from 2020 to the end of 2023, I could move the slider, click apply. Then once this loads up, and this is 693 records of 908, I could analyze just these records now. But I'm going to go back to my full corpus just for this demonstration. Right. So how do we use Bibliometrics to analyze data? Now, this video isn't about how to actually perform the analysis, because you're going to need to be an experienced researcher or do your own research into how we research, what you're actually looking for, and so on. This is how we use the tool. For example, let's look at the overview. So if we look at the main information, wherever we look at any of these things or menus or submenus, it'll either load up automatically like it's done in this case, or we can force the results to run, and we've got various options. So in this case, it's run automatically. We can see our corpus ranges from 2018 to 23 and various other data. That looks good. We've also got the option to add results to a report. So if you want to export a report, a PDF file, for example, with various matrices, you can do that. You just click add results to a report. And if you come down to report in the left-hand side, you can export your report at any time. But at this time, I haven't added anything to my report. So that's why it's saying there's no result. Under settings, and this is probably a good thing to do, just get in the habit of clicking settings. Now, when we have a plot, a graph that we want to export, an image of the graph, and which I will show you, Bibliometrics exports it as a PNG file type. But particularly if you're publishing in an academic journal and so on, you probably want it to be good quality. So I would up the DPI to 600, and I would make this a lot bigger, desired height, just so that your image is nice and big and the quality is, fairly reasonable. Coming back to our main information, Right, so at any time we could add to our report. Also, there's always a background table that we can export to Excel to play with the data, PDF file, CSV, etc., etc. But let's look at the annual scientific production. This will load up over years how many works were published in each year. Right, so 2022, if I hover over it, 190, etc. And again, we can export at any time. So I can just click this little download or export plot as PNG, and it'll download it to my computer, in which case I can add that to my manuscript that I'm creating or whatever, or you can add to a report. And again, always a table in the background. And with the table, we can export the data. We can export it to Excel, and also this is just showing the top 10 rows, but we can show all rows and so on. So you can go through these various things, and as I mentioned, you kind of need to know what you're looking for, what you want to analyze, because that is going to be specific to your research that you're doing. There's no one size fits all. And but let's just carry on a little bit. So other sort of options there are here. Let's look at let's look at documents, for example. Let's look at most frequent words just to demonstrate what else we're looking at. So in this case, because it doesn't load automatically, I just know from using Bibliometrics that we need to run. So I'm going to click run. And what this is showing is the most frequent words of keywords plus. Okay, now keywords plus in Web of Science anyway is keywords that are added by Web of Science. There's a lot of research out there and so on about what keyword plus is, if you want to learn more. But there are various options here. Again, we can add to report, we can download this, we could go into our table and export it to CSV. But if we look at options, we get various options here. So let's say I want to see the most frequent author's keywords, the keywords that the author added. But maybe I want to see the top 15, just for example. Right, so let me run this again. So I'm expecting to see more. There we go. So now I'm seeing 15. And these are the author-provided keywords. So Australia was the #1 keyword, or the most frequently occurring keyword, author-provided keyword in the corpus, marketing second, social media, etc., etc. But let's say, for example, I don't want certain keywords to appear, and I want to use synonyms. So, for example, maybe I want to combine sustainability, I want to combine renewable energy, to not see them as separate keywords, but as one keyword. What we can do is we can create a file for terms we want to exclude from the report and synonyms. Again, if I click options, if I go into text editing, you'll notice load a list of terms to remove, and I can click the down arrow and click yes, or a load of synonyms. So let me show you how we create these files of synonyms and lists of terms to remove. So let's move a few words here. I just know that generally words like, just from my experience, qualitative, quantitative analysis and so on, maybe for what I'm researching right now, that's not useful. So let me get rid of those, and let me combine words like sustainability, renewable, and so on. So I happen to have just created 2 files in the background, just because I know this from experience. One called remove.txt, one called synonyms.txt. They could be called anything, but just save them as text files. So if I load my synonyms.txt, what you'll notice here is that, so what's going on here is I want to combine renewable energy, sustainability, climate change, and environment into the word called environment. So I don't want these as separate words. I want them to only show as one word, a synonym. I'm also going to do the same with the keywords or the words Australia. So I'm going to combine Queensland, New South Wales, Melbourne, Brisbane, etc., into the word Australia. So they don't appear as separate terms, but appear as Australia. Right, so I save that as a txt file, all my synonyms, and you could have, hundreds of lines. But always remember that the synonyms, the extra terms, will show as the first word you put, and it's just comma separated. I also created a file called remove. Just open that. And these are words I don't want to show in Bibliometrics, for example, in my analysis. So I don't want to show the word analysis, quantitative, qualitative, case study, and I'm just comma separating. So all those words will not show. It will not include them in the analysis. To Bibliometrics. So in our options, we can click the down arrow, and I'm going to say load a list of terms to remove, and I'm going to click yes. And then I'm going to browse for my txt file. I'm going to click browse, and I happen to call it remove. I'm going to click open, and it'll remove those words. And let me just scroll down, and it says load a list. Oh, sorry, I'm in the way there. Let me camera, and it says load a list of synonyms. So I'm going to click yes, and again I'm going to click browse, and I'll just browse for my synonyms file. Click open. Let me move myself back. And I've loaded my file. So what I'm expecting to see something different now. So we've done our various options. That's fine. Let me just click up the top to get rid of that. So I'm expecting words like sustainability, renewable energy, and so on to be combined into one and not actually see these terms. So let's run this again. And there we go. Because I combined them into environment, that's now prominent with 43 keyword environment showing 43 times. So that's how we remove terms and include synonyms. Just looking at one more example, and you will need to go through all of this, but looking at, let's look at co-occurrence network. So in this we can create clusters of co-occurring words to see which words co-occur very often. Let me click the play icon to run this. And again, we have various different options. So at the moment, it's doing co-occurrence network on keywords plus, but let's say I want to do it on authors keywords. Again, if I wanted to, I could load a list of terms to remove, synonyms. We also have various method parameters which you can play with. This is different clustering algorithms which might give you different results. And there are various different options. How many nodes do you actually want to include? 100, 200, 300, the minimum number of edges, even graphical parameters. Just move myself out the way. Even graphical parameters bottom. How big do you want the label sizes, etc., etc. So back. So because we've changed from keywords plus to authors keywords, let's just see what's happening here. I've clicked the play, and it'll look at the co-occurrence of the author's provided keywords so that you can get clusters and make sense of them. And this is actually looking like it might be quite easily interpretable. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters here. The big circles represent a higher co-occurrence, more frequently occurring. So yeah, we've got 4 different clusters here. If you want to look at the different clusters, you could look at your table, for example, and you can see what cluster each word is in and show all if we wanted to. So yeah, this cluster only has 2, employability and higher education, so those often appear together. So we could analyze, why does employability and higher education appear together, and we could analyze that further, and these other clusters and so on. Look, that is just a quick demonstration of how we, first of all, we search a database for using in Bibliometrics, how we install Bibliometrics, how we use Bibliometrics, and how we then use it to analyze our results in Bibliometrics. Please like this video, please share it, and thank you for watching.